Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello everyone, welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man, and joining me today is Steve Odber, also known as Mike Matters. Actually, Mike is his Skype username, and I mistakenly put it up at the title of the show, but his actual real name is Steve Odber, and I decided I'd just correct that live on the air for everybody. It was an honest mistake. Nobody meant to try to pull any fast ones here. But Mike has had an incident occur where he has seen what he's not really sure what it is. Is it a apparition, a demon, the devil himself, or what? So he wanted to come on the air and talk about it, and thought maybe somebody here might have some feedback for him. Maybe not. Maybe I might. Maybe not. But hey, it's always information to share. So Mike, how you doing today?
Well, I'm doing well. I'd have to say terrible.
Okay, but should I just say Steve since that's the right name?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with that then. I apologize for that.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though. Well, I've pretty much been paralyzed by disease, severe spinal stenosis. I know the Bible says when you get into it that the devil is the cause of sickness and disease in the world, but my problem really dates back to the year 2004. Just a regular kind of, life was just going on. And one day, my landlord had come in from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, out at the mall there, and I lived in, this is about 40 kilometers into the country where I live. And so, like, the Sault Ste. Marie was a day trip city. My landlord had came back from the city at day at the mall, and just a strange look on her face, and it was like describing this problem of strange people that were following her around the mall in the city. And I thought then, why is she so concerned? And all of a sudden, there was this strange look come over her face, and her eyes bulged, and she just kind of looked away and said, as the phone rang, and ring, and she, don't answer that. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, don't answer that. And I'm like, how could you be warning me not to answer a phone call? I mean, like, what's the worst going to happen? Somebody's going to say hello. But I mean, she picked that phone up, and it was just a busy signal, like bop, 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 and a hang up. So that doesn't seem like much now. But anyway, in a few days from that, I had to go into town to the bank. Now, this is a different town. It's called Bruce Mines, Ontario. So I went into this town, and I was, right before I was going out the door that morning, I shoved some coins in my pocket. I was going out for a coffee, too. And I'd shoved these dollar coins in my pocket. So anyway, I got into the town, about 20 kilometers from where I live, Bruce Mines. I walked into a diner, and the diner was empty. It was fairly early in the morning. And there was just one table that had an empty table where somebody had a beer and looked like a video cassette sitting there. So I sat down at the table before that. The room was really, really silent. And all of a sudden, somebody walked in. It was just the presence, like of this masculine being or whatever. And person, at first, it just seemed like a person. But, somebody to be aware of. And it sat down at the table the guy sat down at the table about 3 tables in front of me where I could see this guy. He was a roughneck guy, kind of, I would have to describe the best from my memory would be like of a Father Time or Old Man Winter type guy, dressed in just old clothing, nothing special there. Maybe something about the eyes or the hair or the facial features, but they're not the first things you remember when you see somebody for maybe half an hour and you don't know what's about to transpire. So what happened there is the first thing that guy did after kind of looking to the left of me and looking to the right of me, he kind of focused right onto me, just staring directly at my face, and I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, you know, is he going to break his concentrational look? And I'm just minding my own business, and then he kind of glances down towards my right pocket, and I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, okay, well, so he's glancing down that way. And all of a sudden it dawns on me, well, what's there? I'm thinking, you know, in his line of view. And I had a $2 coin in that pocket. And as soon as I thought to myself, well, you got this $2 coin in that pocket, you know, what's it matter? But anyway, he glances to my other side of me, and then down towards my other pocket. And I'm concentrating. And I've got two $2 coins in that pocket, like this is Canada. And so all of a sudden, I mean, like, okay, so like, there's $2 in this pocket, 4 in this one, and that up to 6. But the very next minute, he looked over to a table at this diner. And at this table, there were 6 chairs. And I had never been to this, well, I had been to this diner before, but this table was the new table to this diner. I had never seen it before. And then, after he glanced at that table, he glanced out the window. From his view and my a little bit of a view of it, there was a window over the cashier's table or something, the checkout there. And there was a truck, we're calling a trailer, and it said 6-star rentals on the back. And when I added that up, you know, it added to 6, and then 6, and then 6. It all added up when you were staring at this being that, you know, it was evident that this person was something. That's all I can really say. But I had a life of kind of following the rapture of the Christian rapture and kind of a personal relationship with Christ all my life. And so this devil thing it was out of this world for me to ever expect to see or anything spiritual in this world. But I believed in the afterlife, and I had kind of had a lot of hopes in Christ, you know, and finding Christ and him setting my life straight in this world. But I had been deeply disappointed for many years, and that's when this guy came into the picture that time. And, well, after that, let me see, now that morning, let me take a breath here. Well, he basically gave a lot, at this restaurant after that, he basically gave a lot of verbal or physical cues, gestures, like jolting his head around the room, like with these kind of like fiery eyes, and then going back to eating his little light meal there. And I mean, I don't speak that. Like, I mean, you have to speak English to talk to me, but this guy wasn't talking, and he was doing this type of attitude. And so, like, I mean, I realized at that point that this was a devil, or a representation of the devil. It was suggesting great power there, and I had been opposed to the devil all my life. And so when I seen that, I thought, well, geez, you know, your chips are done. Like, sheesh, what are you going to do? I always knew the devil was a powerful being, and we could only defeat him through Christ, and that eventually we had to die to be totally victorious in that. And so there was this kind of a picture on the wall of a fly fishing net to the up above my table on the right, and what the fly fishing I think it is the, what is it is it the hook of fly fishing, or it's a rod, or there's something to do with the line or something. The points of it, eventually, there's a whole bunch of points, and it goes around almost like, it looks like the constellation of the stars. Anyway, there's something to do with fly fishing net, or the hook, I forget. But that's what it represented to me, that little painting, and I can't better describe it this time. But it was all these little points, and you connect them together with threads or something, and it formed something to do with fishing or fly fishing. But to me at that time, when I was sitting there thinking about what I could respond to this devil being with, was it reminded me of a passage in the book of Revelations where it said that at the end of time, in the book of Revelations there, that the stars would fall from the sky, and there would be a new heavens and a new earth. Well, to me, that's what I was telling him, that I was remaining with Christ, and whatever he was about to do, he was going to do, but, you know, I was holding to the word of the Bible. Well, And that is a true passage within with the 7 seals of Daniel, I think it is. That's written about too, or something, where at the end of time, God will roll up the heavens, and there'll be a new heaven and a new earth. And right before that happens, the stars from the sky will fall. But he never really said anymore. There was a few other people that kind of seemed to come in with him. And I mean, I'm watching this guy. I'm not watching these other people, but some of them are behind me, and the ones could be directly in front of me. And they didn't really do anything but sit there quietly. And the whole room was quiet like this at this time. And some of them got up and jostled around. I mean, the one guy, I think he reminded me of a pagan. He represented a pagan, I believe. And I mean, he, following this being's gestures, these verbal head bobbings there, where he'd jerk his head around the room and look with these fiery eyes, this one guy kind of picked up, and he went outside and he did something, now, and come back in. Now excuse me, that's just the way these things go from memory. He didn't really do anything that I can explain on the radio, but he.
Now, all this happened in a public restaurant, right?
Yes.
Okay, so those other people, did they seem to acknowledge that this being was there, or was it like you were the only person who saw him?
They seemed to acknowledge him when they first walked in, because they were within, from my memory, they were within a minute or two of his arrival. They all kind of walked in together, whether they walked in front of him or walked in behind me. But they were fairly normal-looking people. It was only this one guy that really stood out.
And nobody that was present in the restaurant seemed to find anything amiss. It was kind of like maybe you were the only person that was supposed to see it, or supposed to realize what was going on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And yet you're not sure yet if this was a ghostly apparition, a demonic apparition. Do you think there's any connection to E.T. in there anywhere, anything like that?
Oh, I mean, E.T., what does that stand for? Extraterrestrial.
Right.
Well, eventually, yeah, the devil is an extraterrestrial, yes.
Okay, so you don't think this could have been any form of advanced technology being used in front of you to see how it would work out, like holographic technology, perhaps?
Definitely.
Okay, you mean you definitely think that's a possibility, or?
Yep. It's an absolute. Okay. Either there was an actual being on Earth that is the devil, or this was an apparition. It was a vision sort of thing. So holographic, yeah.
So that means that it could have been actual demonic in origin, or it could have been extraterrestrial, not in the interdimensional sense, but rather in the otherworldly sense. And it'd be kind of hard to tell if it was a difference between technology or, actual dimensional shift, in other words.
Yeah. The only thing, the main things that make me laugh when you say that, the only sound in the room was a slight radio. And I mean, at one time I during one of these pauses, nobody was saying anything. I'm like listening to like the Twilight Zone here, like the radio was playing, and you got all these like this being in front of you doing this weird stuff.
I see. Well, I want to also mention to people that are listening at other locations than my website that the call-in number is 832-632-7904 if you want to call in and ask questions. And let me type that in the chat room for people that are listening and chatting at the same time. So if one of them want to call, they can. Make it easy for everybody not to have to try to remember what I just said. Also, the web address here is www.paranormalpalace.com for anybody that wants to come catch the show live and have access to the number written down in front of you and join the chat room. We're more than welcome to have you here. And I've also got a couple of links that Mike has shared with me to share with y'all. One of these is to a CNN report. And on this CNN report, he has a video of him walking across the room that shows that his condition that he's got Now, Mike, if I understand correctly, you weren't born with this condition, were you?
No, I was fairly physically fine. Now, a whole bunch of stuff happened after that meeting, or that encounter with that being in Leeburn, or Bruce Lyons, Ontario. I was living in Leeburn, Ontario. The first thing after I went home, some of the people after that restaurant, I basically just wanted to go to sleep. I mean, I was freaked out what was going to be happening here. But some of these people started almost like channeling in my life, if you know what channeling is.
Yes, sir.
I mean, stuff, they started mumbling stuff that they didn't know what they were saying. And at the time, I was really freaked out. People were channeling, and I mean, it didn't really make any sense. But I mean, well, what was being channeled? But I mean, I had never seen this thing in my life, and I got freaked out. I basically tried to go and have a siesta on my sofa, and I mean, there wasn't much hope of me making any progress with that. Like, I mean, wow, what's going to happen to me? I basically eventually made out a will, and then some weird paranormal activity started happening around me again in my home. I can't really say the time frame of what happened first when I just get talking like this, but to do with my will was on the end of my room on a bookcase, and I was, at night when I went to bed, I would hear that end of the room just start going tick, 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 tick. And you could tell this tick was coming from, the room at that end was 13 feet wide, and I could tell it was coming from the left side of that room where my will was. And the only other time I had heard that ticking, a neighbor had come up, my neighbor Rick, and, well, he was a guy that used to talk to me a lot, and I mean, he just had a calming personality to him. At times, he almost seemed like he was, you know, a consult, like somebody that, you know, made you feel comfortable and talked about other things, but he also kind of had a spiritual nature to him, though we never really ever brought anything up between ourselves spiritually. And, well, I had liked him a lot, and his chair started to tick. No, it wasn't that day, it was the next day. He had come up and talked to me. I didn't see him too often during this. He had come up and started talking to me one day, and the very next day, after he had left, the chair that he was sitting in, it just started to make the same tick sound, like tick, 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 tick. And I knew that this was a supernatural tick. Like, I mean, this was freaking me out. I had never knew that anything like this would ever be possible. You know. So, I knew things were serious enough, and at one point, I think that's the point where I just basically was going to take a siesta on my couch. Like, I mean, there's nobody you can call. Like, but I mean, the strange weather started happening, and I think at first, it was like at night when I went to bed, you'd hear the roar of planes going over in the sky, like roar, 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 like off in the distance, but enough that in the country where I was, I'd never heard these before. And roar, 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 and I mean, not like living over an airport, but I mean, you could hear them at however many thousand feet up in the sky. And as they were doing this, day after day, the skies grew grayer and grayer and grayer. And I mean, to the one point that, I mean, I didn't really ever mention it, but I mean, in the back of my mind, I wondered, well, what's going on? And...
Okay. Well, pardon me, I got a little frog in my throat there. But I was just listening to you. Now, one of the things I didn't get to ask you yet was, did your spinal condition occur right before or right after this incident at the restaurant?
4 years after.
4 years after. Was there anything happened between the restaurant incident and your condition that kind of, might indicate that there was a link between them?
There wasn't. So
you don't know if the two are connected or not then?
Oh, I do, yes. This has definitely been caused by the devil. I mean, he had threatened me. Like, I mean, I picked up a lot of cues, and I mean, I was under threat for I think basically I'll put it on the spot. I would say I got the intuition that I was being threatened to reveal this to people, that the devil existed. And I mean,
Okay, go ahead and try to describe what you. Okay, you know it was caused by the devil, and you know that incident was also caused by the devil. But how do you know they were? How did you know that they were? I mean, okay, on your ID, I think you were sharing with me that it has 666 in it. You think there's some link between that and what happened at the restaurant, then, right?
yes. Well, I mean, I'll be skipping ahead a few years. There was major stuff happened before that. But just to get to this illness, well, I had been kind of, when I did these, well, maybe I better just go a little bit more in order instead of skipping ahead to 4 years. But after these beings got challenged, that this being got challenged somehow, I mean, being a Christian, I looked for Jesus. And I mean, to help me. And I mean, the devil got me, and I think he convinced me that one of these spirits was of Jesus. I mean, he was playing Mr. Nice. I mean, I can't really, and I trusted it. And I mean, in my mind, like I said, the weather was going weird there. In my mind, totally in my mind now, I said, well, if you're God, I mean, I want you to and he was doing all these miraculous things. I mean, if you're God and you're going to this level of trouble for me, I know the devil's out there. I want to be sure what's God. And I said in my mind, now, if you're God, I want to see an earthquake set off in the Pacific Ocean outside of Canada, off the coast of Canada, the coast of British Columbia there. And within 2 or 3 days, be darned if there wasn't a mini underwater volcano off the coast of BC there. Now these are many, I think they're called water spots or water funnels deep under the ocean. But it was on my news channel, and I mean, I watched that news channel fairly regularly. I mean, there wasn't any other volcanoes happening, and this erupted. So once I got that clue that he could also read your mind, I mean, I got in it thinking that this was definitely God, because in the Bible it tells me that the only one that knows my true inner mind is God. The devil knows outer layers, but he does not know your inner mind. And let me tell you, there's some mistakes there. But anyway, I could see then after that volcano was done, that I said, okay, well, I mean, if you're responsible for the weather out there, and I mean, you're responsible for the weather here. And I said, well, split that cloud in front of me. The cloud above me in that house split in two. The cloud up in the sky, the white circular cloud split in two. The wind caused, or the atmospheric pressure caused that cloud to split. So I knew I was dealing with something, but I ended up then all these UFOs started. First they were like little planes going across the daytime sky. They would look like jets. And I wondered what all their activity was. And, well, I followed them, and I followed them, and I followed them, and, like, not in my mind, I mean, like, daily looking out at them and saying, in curiosity, what could they be? And, I mean, they appeared like regular military aircraft for a while, but, I mean, then after a while, they started doing things that weren't mechanically possible. Some of them got to the point where they're hanging in the sky, or like they'd be like ultralight aircrafts or something, like just hanging there, and then they'd pick up and they'd dart off again. So I knew there was the devil out there, and I believed there was God out there, and these things were happening. And I ended up put into a weird position where I got to thinking that because some of these weird things that were going on in the world, I thought that there was military involvement in espionage on me, and of course the spirit backed it up. And of course it can communicate. The devil can communicate, but as I thought at the time was God, and I thought I was to evade the detection of this military presence or whatever. And I asked if there was something live in my home, and I mean, it indicated yes, and I mean, I got to looking around, and I mean, as soon as I latched on to what, because it was like this spirit of force was getting mad at their presence or something. And I wanted to evade the things that were going on because to the military, because I mean I didn't know. The military and the astral world has always been separate. So, and especially due to religion and the problems within, that they stay separate. But anyway, I got to thinking these cameras were on me all the time. I mean, from my tiny military cameras inside of my television sets, to my alarm clocks, to you name it. I mean, satellite photography from outside, possibly from these military aircraft that were going over. So I got to be quite paranoid, and dangerously. And I lived in a delusion like that for, but I estimate it could have been upwards to 2 years. And I was trying to prevent, and I believe this surveillance was so good as, is it what Hercules or what aircraft it is, the military's BAWAC there that can eavesdrop from the sky on civilians, just with its hardware on board these military aircraft. And I mean, there were some strange things happening. Anyway, I bought it. The bad thing is it's against my personality. I'd never experienced that sort of thing in my life before, but I bought it. And it screwed me for about 2 years. I was brought to the brink of death, actually, and there just wasn't any way out of it. I thought the rapture was going to come. My way out was either suicide or the rapture, the second coming of Christ, and I was going to hold on for that to happen. But towards the end of the 2 years, I got to thinking, well, this is a bit ridiculous. Obviously, that I was trying to evade their even detection. Like, it's pretty hard to act around your house, if you know what I mean. Like, you grab your coffee cup a certain way, you drink, you have your patterns of behavior.
Right.
These professional people can detect that. You're trying to evade them after 2 years. So I said, well, this is ridiculous. And it started to dawn on me, oh my God, it's been the devil or something. So I totally just blanked all that stuff in my mind and came back to what I knew as reality, and I seen the danger I was in and all the things I had done during this time outside of my home. And I mean, I thought, well, that's dangerous enough for me, knowing he's got the weather and all this stuff. And I decided to move to the city where it was a little bit safer for me. Now, when I got back to the Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, I had realized that the things were a delusion, I guess, in about December of 2007, right before Christmas that year. It was just like a huge elation that at least you were free of this military presence in your life. You could relax, and so I decided to move, and I got my things together, and I found a place in the city, Sault Ste. Marie, and by the time I got moved to here, in July of 2008, 2 weeks before my move-in date, my family got a call that my young niece of 20 years old, Erica Saunders, had died suddenly, and there was the funeral. I was a walking pallbearer in that funeral. And
sounds like it was
2 months
a very rough period.
2 months after that, 2 weeks after I was a walking pallbearer in her funeral, I got this 666 license in the mail, because after you move, you fill out for a new license. Well, I got this 666 license in the mail 2 weeks after being a walking pallbearer in her funeral, and 2 months after that, I come down with the symptoms of severe spinal stenosis, and I could not walk around the block that year. And, I waited for 2 years after that, knowing that it was the devil that caused these illnesses to me. And I got diagnosed by MRI in January of 2010, Sioux Area Hospital. And as I don't know, kind of an act of martyrdom to Christ, because of my original statement to him in that restaurant that I would remain faithful, I, as Job in the Bible, have said, no, I'm not having surgery. I've been in a wheelchair for about 3 years.
Okay, so this can be corrected by surgery, but you're choosing not to. Is that correct?
I would hope so. I do not know. All I know is the time I got diagnosed, they said it was critical that I had surgery immediately, and that was my doctor tried to book it within 3 days or something to schedule an appointment with a surgeon, and I refused at that time. And
so now it might be too late.
It could be, yes.
Okay.
I'm not very learned on it.
Now, is there any kind of way possible that this was a pre-existing dormant condition that you could have had from birth?
I put it this way. Well, while I was getting sicker and sicker, I had seen apparitions. I don't know about apparitions. A lot of wheelchairs, I'll tell you that much. In the back of these trucks, different places I would go, it'd be like a slap in the face. You'd see a truck with a wheelchair in the back of it. And I knew what message it was getting across to me. That I would be in a wheelchair, and there isn't any real connection that was from birth. There isn't.
Okay.
There is also paranormal activity in this city. I mean, that's the one miracle. Miracle on St. George's Hill, that's less than a mile from me here now, of the Shaking Steel Cross. And I mean, I've seen activity like that myself and in my own life. And when you put two and two together, I mean, you don't need to wonder whether this was heredity.
Have you had this here prayed for at church?
Well, there are ministers praying, yep.
Okay. And are you still continuing to see apparitions to this day?
I would say so. But you know, they're just so commonplace. You can't really say, well, what's an apparition? But I mean, I don't see that type of beings from that type of morning. That the only occasion I ever seen that type of activity that I described at that restaurant was once, really, to my recent memory. But there's always something, you know.
But ever since that happened, it seems like something's, shall we say, attached to you, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
And how often do you see apparitions of one form or another?
Well, I don't get out a lot anymore because I'm in a wheelchair, and I can't get a scooter to get out, you know, to get out into the city. So I'm around the house a lot. I go for a ride sometimes in a car, but I mean, you know, I can't really walk through a restaurant or a mall or anything like that because by the time you get the chair out, by the time I got the wheelchair out of a car and try to get into a place, there'd be nothing really I could do. So I don't really go out to places like that. I'm a shut-in, but...
Okay, so what I'm getting from this is that this happens primarily when you're away from home, but it's really like nothing ever happens when you're at home. Right.
Like, I mean, right. Nothing ever really happens at home because as long as you stay within your, you know, within a normally functioning system, nothing really changes that dramatically. There are things like, I mean, that I know could be supernatural. There's things that happen, but I mean, they're really drops in the bucket. And if you talk about them, you just go on and on, you know. Like, I just ignore it.
Okay, so it only bothers if you do.
I'm not seeing anybody pop up around my house, if that's what you mean. There ain't any special guests.
At least not yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that much is good. Now, I do believe now, if I saw the video correctly, though, you are able to walk, just not for very far. Is that correct?
Yeah, but I mean, that's not walking. That's grasping walls. Like that grasping walls, and I mean, within a house for 20 feet at your best point in the day.
Sounds like a pretty hard way to have to live your life when you're used to having full mobility. Have you, I mean, I'm trying to think of how I want to put it. I mean, because, I mean, it sounds like such a strange occurrence. I mean, for most people that I've talked to, they have actually went out to public places and a spirit would seem to attach to them and follow them home and haunt them at the house. And your case is quite different from that norm. And I was have you ever actually thought about having somebody maybe investigate that restaurant to see if it had some kind of a, demon attached to it or something?
Well, that's where I wanted to bring in Jesse Ventura conspiracy theory. And I put in a request on his forum at True TV that for myself as a show idea, but I can't get through to the directors, I can't get through to the producers or whatever, I can't get through to anybody in this world. Except, people that wouldn't have the resources to help.
And how long ago did you make that post in Jesse Ventura's forum?
It should be dated on the link if you want to share that.
Yeah, I was there. I saw the post. I just didn't read it.
Well,
Folks, okay, I thought I lost you for a minute.
If you could check that date for us,
Okay, hold on a minute. I'm looking at it now. Looks like it was 1/13, so that was, hold it. Oh, 1/13/2011. You couldn't have posted that 1/13/2011 because we're still in December. Yeah, wait, okay, that was last January, okay. So yeah, it was almost a year ago, and you haven't heard back from them yet.
Yeah, was that in April of this year, or March?
January.
January of this year?
Yeah, so it'll be a year next month on the 13th, and he hasn't responded back for some odd reason.
Yeah, I've also been in contact with his lawyer, David Olson, I believe it is. I've written him an email asking him that, it's such a rare circumstance if he could get, show Jesse my my site to him and ask Jesse to, look into it. If there's any chance he'd get back to me, and his lawyer would not answer.
Yeah, I've contacted his media agent to invite him to my show, and she got back to me, said he was busy, and that's the last I heard from him, although I understand that he did shows for other people, but I get the distinct impression he's not an easy man to reach, in other words.
Well, yeah, but it's worth his soul. I've seen Jesse on Larry, was it Larry King? No, now it's Piers Morgan. And I've got the date of his airing of that show. And he was on there saying he doesn't believe in God of any kind.
Really?
Oh, really? It's on Piers Morgan, I think, April 4th airing. Whenever Jesse was on the Piers Morgan show, he was quoted as saying he does not believe in God of any kind. And I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to kind of prove God to Jesse and maybe give him a chance before he passes, because, we all know what the regular Christian tradition would say about that. I thought it'd be a good chance for him, He's gone down to Mexico now.
My wife was just saying in the chat room she don't think his conspiracy show is airing anymore, and I haven't seen no new episodes in months, so maybe it's lying dormant itself right now. But at any rate, I was going to say, I have some friends over at UnitedParanormalInternational.ning, and if you go over to that website, there's a lot of people, I think even in your area, that are demonologists that might could come out there and do an investigation. They're not Jesse Ventura, but who knows, maybe they can be of some help.
Well, what type of system what would they do?
I'm not exactly sure. I don't know a lot of the demonologists over there personally, for the fact being they got well over 1,000 members in the site from all around the world, and I'm sure that different demonologists have their different procedures, but you can look and see if they got one in Canada, and you can ask them what they do.
Well, it's always a consideration. Really, I want to be focused. I want to get my CNN report vetted. That CNN report, you've got the link to if you want to share that.
Yeah, I put that in the chat room, by the way, and I will put it up on the website when I put it in the archives. But that's ireport.cnn.com/docs with a little d and /doc capital hyphen 621108. So I don't usually read out those kind of complex URLs because most people don't remember them. I find it easier just to post it so they can click on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's a lot of useful information there.
Yeah, there is a lot of information there. And CNN's a pretty big site. What do you mean by vetted?
Well, that just means when the producers at CNN go over the report you've made, they contact you and they make sure you are who you are. And they consider, I guess, sending a journalist or something.
Okay, so you expect to hear from them.
Once they get it vetted, they could put that on the air at CNN. After that's vetted, that could be on CNN.
Okay.
Hopefully, it could be made a lot better before then, but you have to understand that I'm in an unbearable situation here.
Right. Do you think them coming out and maybe even Jesse Ventura coming out will help alleviate what you're experiencing in any way, shape, or form?
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, I'm getting down on people, and I mean, any contact with somebody in the media type world is good for me. Like, I mean, and what it would help do is gather together some of these facts and put it forward for people. I mean, it would help people of the world too, because I mean, you see some of these bigger things that I got out that eventually it's my case that people, I've seen God and I've seen the devil, and obviously I know God exists, right? So, well, we all know that God's basically, the Christian God Jehovah has turned his face from us essentially. And then he offered us the olive branch back to him through Christ. And the more people in the world get to know that it's a reality that we need salvation to the best of our understanding. That's good for people around the world, and it's also good for people around the world to know that they should be treating the weather, the elements of the weather, as if it were a cold-blooded murderer. If you recall the people from Joplin, Missouri this year that disappeared due to them tornadoes.
Yeah, I read about that.
That was a satanic act, and it was deliberate. And it was deliberate, and there's many more of these attacks going around across the globe. But I mean, that one in Joplin, where when they rebuild that city that's devastated now, if they could rebuild that with tornado-proof homes or rooms, legislate that, there will become a time in the future when then people will be able to withstand them storms. And I mean, it is evil. It is. That's murder.
Okay. Now, where can people reach you at if they want to ask you more questions or comment or offer advice or even try to help?
Yeah. I don't really have anybody to field that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, my email doesn't always get through to me. There's some mysteries there of stuff disappearing. I've been trying to I've been in email my Prime Minister here in Canada, Prime Minister Stephen Harper, his office, and since spring, and nobody from his office has gotten back to me through my emails. I've written approximately more than 19 to the Prime Minister's office in Canada, and his office, I called a voice to them within the last couple of months, 2 calls. The one guy named John from email correspondence at his office tells me that there's no traces of my emails to them on their system. And I mean, well, I can't force them to do an audit there, but okay, they're gone. So I have records of these emails with me here. I called back within another month. About a month later, I asked, and again, I emailed them again. And they still said, well, there ain't any emails on your system, Stephen. Or on our system, Stephen. And I mean, that's as far as I've gotten with that, because I mean, the Prime Minister's office is difficult to talk with people. They would not give me another email where I could email them into a more secure email. They would not give me a more direct phone number where I could contact them. And I mean, I've asked my Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, for some extra health benefits while I'm waiting here. Maybe, but myself, personally, my emails are disappearing. I suspect, I don't know, but I don't get a lot of replies from people. And to me, you could try emailing me at that email address, I am at hotmail.ca. possibly people could forward things through yourself at the show here, and you can get a hold of me on Skype, or what's my Skype name? Old World Orders at hotmail.com or .ca. My Skype, I'd be welcome to put people on Skype, but or mailing to me at Stephen. You could mail me a letter at Stephen Odber, 561 John Street, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, P6C 3K6.
All right, that sounds good to me. I was going to mention we've been on here for about 45 minutes. The usual show's about an hour for me, unless I try to, prearrange it for longer because I do other things as well as my show. So I was going to mention to you, if you got anything that I haven't thought to cover, why don't you go ahead and mention it now?
Well, remember, I have seen the elements of the weather right in front of my face, the wind, lightning storms, thunder. I've seen demons possess people at times. I mean, I don't want to get into that because it's a terrible, nobody's really got the facts on it. But I would call it demons coming over people at times. And once I seen one, to my description, caused a lightning bolt to rain from the sky. And I mean, this was a family member, and I mean, they just seemed to blank out for a second and slap their face, their forearm at the window with a finger, saying peace, and a lightning bolt dropped from the sky. And boom, like just orange right low to the ground, like I mean heavy stuff. So I have seen the weather, and the biggest thing is that people can learn to get to the danger spots of the weather in the world and prepare against them as if it was a cold-blooded murder. Because I know you can't really beat this type of force, but it does seem to behave on a scientific model. Like, I mean, if you build a tornado-proof room, well, it ain't going to up you into a hurricane. You're going to be safe. But, you know what I mean? And any contacts that I can be gotten to with religious leaders, I mean, obviously, there's some trouble in the religious community in the world. I can't seem to reach anyone that is willing to accept that the Bible is true.
You mean you can't reach anybody in the church that's willing to accept that?
Basically, like, I mean, we've all had our Bibles on our coffee tables, and I mean, odd, but I mean, when you actually tell these people that some of these things are true and the devil, and I mean, you're not the first on their calling card, and I mean, the churches are in rough shape. I mean, there's not a lot that they would do, but I mean, international religious leaders, the people that could go out to where the disasters of the world are and possibly put forth their efforts, their godly efforts, and maybe where the UNICEF communities are, all these works are around the globe that people are trying to help the disaster victims, and people that can understand God and the system and the Bible of Satan for us and all people of the world. Then I mean, they could probably better help these people, because the Christian community still does not realize that this is not their God. I mean, they're teetering back and forth. It's God, no, it's Satan. No, it's God, no, it's Satan. I mean, as long as they think it's God, they think these things happening are the act and will of God. So they help what they can. But I mean, if they ever really realize that it's the devil doing this, and it's hatred and it's cold-blooded murder, to a degree, I mean, I don't know about all the time, but I mean, I know when a tornado destroys Joplin, or when a tornado, or when even a tsunami, like in Fukushima, Japan. He has so orchestrated the devil's power on earth that he caused the tsunami, knowing that it would cause the nuclear melter to react down in Japan, and then people are being radiated as we speak. And I mean, all these places need to better prepare all their systems for the end of time, as for the great battle of Armageddon.
All right. Now, most churches I've been into, they will tell you that the Bible is the inspired, infallible Word of God, and they'll even quote the Apostle Paul speaking to Timothy on that, and yet you say they don't think the Bible is true. I've noticed the same thing myself before.
Yeah.
What it is, they tell you that the Bible's true, but if you point out something in the Bible that doesn't agree with their doctrine, then you're wrong. But by saying you're wrong because you're reading a verse, they're actually saying the Bible is wrong by proxy. Is that what you're talking about?
You could probably go there too, but really I just mean that, I'm only able to be in contact with small-time local preachers, and I could get one to believe something, but he'll say, well, I'll go and pray for you. Well, they don't want to get into solving the world's problems, and they don't really have anything to solve mine, so if I could ever get into contact with some international leaders, religious leaders, considering that the will of God is that, that they do His work, I'm sure God would want to help me somehow, and maybe something could be done for me. I'm 40 years old now. I was 34 when this started.
Well, I happen to know a few of the ministers around, not personally, but I've heard their sermons. I know there's some people that would tell you you're dead wrong, like John Hagee. He'll say that's God's judgment on those people over there in Joplin. That's why that's happening. That ain't the devil. Then you got another person like Ed Young who'll say, well, no, I think you're right. I think that is the devil. So, what are you really up against here when you can't even get the big name preachers to agree? Yeah.
All I can tell you is the only thing I can come up with, because, I understood, is that the devil is God at this age. And you can quote that in the book of Corinthians, I think it was by Paul, that Paul is the God at this age. And what I've kind of put together is that's the God at this age. He's got all the powers where most of the powers we used to see in the Bible that were attributed to Jehovah. They're actually in the hand of the devil for an age. It's called a time and a time and a time again. And at the end of that time, then God is going to roll up these seals. The seventh seal of Daniel will be rolled up, and then he'll regain power, and there'll be a new heaven and a new earth. And, so you're right. They don't want to agree to it, but even Pat Robertson, I think he was criticized for saying it was God too, but at least Pat was still on that could be the devil's side. Or I don't know, but
Oh, I want to clarify one thing that I said a minute ago. I gave examples of John Hagee and Ed Young, and those are meant hypothetically only. I can't say which pastor would agree, which one would not, but I needed a hypothetical situation for an example, so I want to clarify that before I get a call or an email from John Hagee or them. You can't put words in my mouth. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But, yeah, I didn't mean that way. I just meant it as a hypothetical for an example. But, yeah, the general gist is one preacher says, yeah, it's the devil. The other one says, no, it's God. And here you got a tug of war going on that don't get you nowhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you take a look at the people of Joplin. Well, I would say take a look. Well, what I say doesn't matter. But, when I see the type of destruction, I personally know that it's the devil. I know.
Okay, now I want to let everybody know that I will be posting this show to the archive, to YouTube, to Dailymotion, to Media Cafe. And in my archive here, I'm going to add the links that he has given me so y'all can find the other material on this as well. Now, it'll probably be tomorrow, the next day before I actually get it posted. Kind of busy during the holidays. I wanted to ask you real quick if you had any last-minute thoughts you'd like to share before we leave the day.
It'd probably take me a minute to gather them. The license, if you see it, it does have my name on it, my picture, the date it was issued. My niece's obituary can be verified that it was 2 weeks. My niece's funeral was 2 weeks before the 666 license being issued by the province of Ontario under the Canadian government here. It's a highly secured document, capable of border travel, security clearance. It's one of the new agreements, and the only other thing is the condition is so severe. If you ever noticed that the shuttle Columbia debris from the shuttle, the atmosphere caused the debris from that space shuttle blowing up to fall where? On Palestine, Texas. And what does Israel and Palestine have to do together? God and Jehovah. But at the time that these things were happening, that shuttle, Palestine was in the news every day. Like roadmap to peace in Israel. And I mean, you might see more and more of a coincidence if you studied that, and a little bit more of what I'm saying there, that this debris coincidentally fell on Palestine, Texas, the majority. So I don't think the shuttle blowing up was a coincidence either. But I mean that's a bit off base. That just because I happen to know a few other things that I can't mention about very quickly, but he is capable of that.
Okay. And I want to also thank all the people who joined in and listened. If you didn't do nothing but listen, that's still participation, and I couldn't have a show without you any more than I could have a show without my guests. I want to make sure I invite everybody to come back again. Before I invite everybody to come back again, I want to also mention that I've decided to take this coming Tuesday off and not have a show. I really had promised it to somebody who wasn't able to make it, and rather than try to fill it at the last minute or do a solo, since my wife's birthday is tomorrow, I decided I'd just take this Tuesday off and have some extra family time during the holiday. But I will be back this coming Saturday, which is what I was leading up to, for y'all to return. And my guest is going to be Nigel Kerner. And, well, he wants to talk about, and man shall walk as a machine. And he's talking about the nanotechnology that's going into human beings nowadays, and the fact that some scientists are trying to find a way to actually transfer human consciousness into an android or an automatron. And although they haven't been able to do this yet, and he's not even certain, and I think they're really shooting at a wild dream myself. There's other ramifications about playing God here in a situation like that. And Nigel wants to come and tell everybody what he thinks about it. And it should be a fantastic show, so I invite everybody to come. Steve, I'm sorry. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Very interesting story you got going on there. If I should get some feedback, I'll make sure I share it with you. And if I do ever get a hold of anybody in the kind of position you're mentioning, I'll share the information with them in case they want to get a hold of you.
Okay, thanks, Roy.
Okay, I want to thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this show today. And I'm going to tend to the family and tend to our dinner today. Thank you very much, Mike. You have a good one. And everybody else, just want to say good night one more time. Please come back this next Saturday. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio, where truth equals reality, and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paranormal Palace Radio. This is your host, Royce the Redneck Radio Man. And joining me today is Steve Odber, also known as Mike Matters. Actually, Mike is his Skype username, and I mistakenly put it up at the title of the show, but his actual real name is Steve Odber, and I decided I'd just correct that live on the air for everybody. It was an honest mistake. Nobody meant to try to pull any fast ones here. But Mike has had an incident occur where he has seen what he's not really sure what it is. Is it a apparition, a demon, the devil himself, or what? So he wanted to come on the air and talk about it, and thought maybe somebody here might have some feedback for him. Maybe not. Maybe I might. Maybe not. But hey, it's always information to share. So Mike, how you doing today?
Well, I'm doing well. I'd have to say terrible.
Okay, but should I just say Steve since that's the right name?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go with that then. I apologize for that.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though. Well, I've pretty much been paralyzed by disease, severe spinal stenosis. I know the Bible says when you get into it that the devil is the cause of sickness and disease in the world, but my problem really dates back to the year 2004. Just a regular kind of, life. was just going on. And one day, my landlord had come in from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, out at the mall there, and I lived in, this is about 40 kilometers into the country where I live. And the best from my memory would be like of a Father Time or Old Man Winter type guy dressed in just old clothing. Like, I mean, nothing special there. Maybe something about the eyes or the hair or the facial features. But they're not the first things you remember when you see somebody for maybe half an hour and you don't know what's about to transpire. So what happened there is the first thing that guy did after kind of looking to the left of me and looking to the right of me, he kind of focused right onto me, just staring directly at my face. And I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, you know, is he going to break his concentrational look? And I'm just minding my own business. And then he kind of glances down towards my right pocket. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, okay, well, so he's glancing down that way. And all of a sudden it dawns on me, well, what's there? I'm thinking, you know, in his line of view. And I had a $2 coin in that pocket. And as soon as I thought to myself, well, you got this $2 coin in that pocket, you know, what's it matter? But anyway, he glances to my other side of me and then down towards my other pocket. And I'm concentrating. And I've got two $2 coins in that pocket. Like, this is Canada. And so all of a sudden, I mean, like, okay, so like, there's $2 in this pocket, 4 in this one, and that up to 6. But the very next minute, he looked over to a table at this diner. And at this table, there were 6 chairs. And I had never been to this, well, I had been to this diner before, but this table was the new table to this diner. I had never seen it before. And then, after he glanced at that table, he glanced out the window. From his view and a little bit of a view of it, there was a window over the cashier's table or something, the checkout there. And there was a truck, we call it a trailer, and it said 6-star rentals on the back of it. And when I added that up, it added to 6, and then 6, and then 6. It all added up when you were staring at this being that, it was evident that this person was something. It's all I can really say. But I had a life of kind of following the rapture of the Christian rapture and kind of a personal relationship with Christ all my life. And so this devil thing it was out of this world for me to ever expect to see him or anything spiritual in this world. But I believed in the afterlife, and I had kind of had a lot of hopes in Christ, and finding Christ and him setting my life straight in this world. But I had been deeply disappointed for many years, and that's when this guy came into the picture that time. And, well, after that, let me see, that morning, let me take a breath here. Well, he basically gave a lot, at this restaurant after that, he basically gave a lot of verbal or physical cues, gestures, like jolting his head around the room, like with these kind of like fiery eyes, and then going back to eating his little light meal there. And I mean, I don't speak that. Like, I mean, you have to speak English to talk to me, but this guy wasn't talking, and he was doing this type of attitude. And so, like, I mean, I realized at that point that this was a devil, or a representation of the devil. It was suggesting great power there, and I had been opposed to the devil all my life. And so when I seen that, I thought, well, geez, your chips are done. Like, sheesh, what are you going to do? I always knew the devil was a powerful being, and we could only defeat him through Christ, and that eventually we had to die to be totally victorious in that. And so there was this kind of a picture on the wall of a fly fishing net to the up above my table on the right, and what the fly fishing I think it is the, what is it is it the hook of fly fishing, or it's a rod, or there's something to do with the line or something. The points of it, eventually, there's a whole bunch of points, and it goes around almost like, it looks like the constellation of the stars. Anyway, there's something to do with fly fishing net or the hook, I forget. But that's what it represented to me, that little painting, and I can't better describe it this time, but it was all these little points, and you connect them together with threads or something, and it formed something to do with fishing or fly fishing. But to me at that time, when I was sitting there thinking about what I could respond to this devil being with, was it reminded me of a passage in the book of Revelations where it said that at the end of time, in the book of Revelations there, that the stars would fall from the sky and there would be a new heavens and a new earth. Well, to me, that's what I was telling him, that I was remaining with Christ, and whatever he was about to do, he was going to do, but, you know, I was holding to the word of the Bible. Well, and that is a true passage within where the 7 seals of Daniel, I think it is, that's written about too, or something, where at the end of time, God will roll up the heavens, and there'll be a new heaven and a new earth, and right before that happens, the stars from the sky will fall. But he never really said anymore. There was a few other people that kind of seemed to come in with him. And I mean, I'm watching this guy. I'm not watching these other people, but some of them are behind me, and the ones could be directly in front of me. And they didn't really do anything but sit there quietly. And the whole room was quiet like this at this time. And some of them got up and jostled around. I mean, the one guy, I think he reminded me of a pagan. He represented a pagan, I believe. And I mean, he, following this being's gestures, these verbal, so like the Sault Ste. Marie was a day trip city. And my landlord had came back from the city at day at the mall, and just a strange look on her face, and it was like describing this problem of strange people that were following her around the mall in the city. And I thought then, why is she so concerned? And all of a sudden, there was this strange look come over her face, and her eyes bulged, and she just kind of looked away and said, as the phone rang, and ring, and she, don't answer that. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, don't answer that. And I'm like, you know, like, how could you be warning me not to answer a phone call? I mean, like, what's the worst going to happen? Somebody's going to say hello. But I mean, she picked that phone up, and it was just a busy signal, like bop, 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 and a hang up. So that doesn't seem like much now. But anyway, in a few days from that, I had to go into town to the bike. Now, this is a different town. It's called Bruce Mines, Ontario. So I went into this town, and I was, right before I was going out the door that morning, I shoved some coins in my pocket. I was going out for a coffee, too. And I'd shoved these dollar coins in my pocket. So anyway, I got into the town, about 20 kilometers from where I live, Bruce Mines. I walked into a diner, and the diner was empty. It was fairly early in the morning. And there was just one table that had an empty table where somebody had a beer and looked like a video cassette sitting there. So I sat down at the table before that. The room was really, really silent. And all of a sudden, somebody walked in. It was just the presence, like of this masculine being or whatever. And person, at first, it just seemed like a person. But, you know, somebody to beware of. And it sat down at the table the guy sat down at the table about 3 tables in front of me where I could see this guy. He was a roughneck guy, kind of, I would have to describe